Welcome, everyone, to Season 7 of the Sister Brunch podcast. We are the only podcast that is building the largest archive of the stories of Black women and Black gender expansive people who are thriving, continuing to work and change the entire industry in film, TV, media, content creation, all of the above. And today's guest is already part of the Sister Brunch family because we've had her sister on the podcast on season 6. So that was actually one of our most popular episodes was Nandi Bowe. And now we have her sister Kai Bowe. She has worked across scripted and unscripted television. So excited to get into that because we haven't had a lot of unscripted folks on the podcast. So there's so much we can learn from that. She has produced and overseen influential projects, including America's Next Top Model, Project Runway, Red Table Talk, Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath. Ooh, that one was, ooh, my goodness, so much on that one. And today she serves as Director of Current Programming Unscripted at OWN. Please help me give a warm welcome to Kai Bowe.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
It's really good to know you, to meet you. When we had Nandi on, she sent a text immediately afterwards. And it's like, how have you not had my sister on too? So we're really glad to have the family here. In Nandi's episode, we talked about how she kind of almost accidentally got into the industry, but then just went nonstop. And so was it that the two of you worked together when she was getting started? Tell us how your journey, how you got here, all the things that happened before sitting here at Sister Brunch.
So as you mentioned, my sister was in production and still is. And we are 8 years apart. So when she was really starting to establish herself as an assistant director, she invited me to be an intern on Do the Right Thing.
You were an intern on it.
Intern. I was one of the youngest people on set. I was 16 years old.
That's right.
Acted like I belonged there. Acted like I was running shit. Acted like I actually was getting paid.
Yes.
But that started the journey. And before that, I'd gone onto set with her and been an extra and things like that. But it was, for obvious reasons, one of the most pivotal experiences of my life. Goodness. However, I had no intention whatsoever of being in the film industry. So I kept working different summers with her. I worked on Sister Act 2. I worked on The Court Martial of Jackie Robinson and different movies. And of course, I was having the time of my life, working very, very hard. Yeah. While most people were doing retail and, folding up shirts at Benetton or something, I was on these sets and not taking it for granted, but I didn't think it was for me. So biggest, sense of denial ever, which I'm actually really grateful for. So I thought that I knew that I wanted a doctoral degree. I thought that I was this intellectual, which I am.
Yes. Okay.
But I went forward, UCLA psychology degree, thought I was going to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist, realized I'm like far too tenderhearted and emotional for that. Went to law school, fully intending to be an attorney. Okay. Halfway through, I was at Howard, which is, the most amazing experience. Was very happy, but halfway through, I started doing The Artist's Way, which a lot of us have done and know. And I say, don't do The Artist's Way if you don't want your entire life to change. So I'm halfway through law school, doing The Artist's Way, and it keeps saying, what would you do if money was no object? What would you do if, what's easiest and what makes your heart sing and all of those things. And I kept saying, I would be a writer. I'd be a writer. Mm. And I guess into that point, I didn't realize two things. One is that not everyone's a writer, like people are literate. And then there's writers, like people who have to write and have to get it on the page. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I was that person and that it was a viable profession. And so I did finish law school, but I already knew that I was going to head to Los Angeles and be a screenwriter. So I did just that. I started working as a receptionist so that I could write, all day long. Was a good receptionist, even though a few people would be like, you're a little smart. Or they'd be like, I've seen your Howard Law plates on your car. And I'd be like, shh, don't tell anyone.
Yes.
But I managed to write my first screenplay.
And did you decided to go that route so that you could really focus on the writing, right? I think sometimes we take jobs that pay the bills and we can be good at, but that allows for the creative time and energy to do the thing that we want to be doing.
Exactly. And I think it's really important. To me, it made perfect sense. Was it humbling? Sometimes, yes, or not even humbling, where I would be like, look, I'm the smartest person in here.
I need to be quiet, coffee. Yeah, just take the coffee and drink it. Yeah.
But actually, the funny thing that I always talk about is I had a temp agent, Louise Hamaguchi, who did entertainment placement. So that was also part of the strategy of me getting into at least, networks and entertainment companies. Yes. And I would be quiet about who I was because I was like, this is serving my purpose. I just want to write all day long. She, on the other hand, is very feisty. And so if anyone ever complained, she'd be like, she's got a fucking law degree. And I was like, Louise, you can't keep saying this.
Listen, it's nice to have someone,
Exactly. So she was actually one of my biggest fans, and to this day. But I managed to finish a screenplay. And as I started entering it into competitions and sending it to various producers, it actually got really good traction. Yes. And so it was a great affirmation for me of, okay, I'm not delusional. I have talent in this area. Yes. And what I say, what I have to say is having an impact. But it got the attention of two people. And I feel like both of those were pivotal in lessons and also in affirmation. One was Jim Stern, part owner of the Chicago Bulls, who at the time, obviously the Chicago Bulls will always be the Chicago Bulls. But at that time, it was Jordan, it was Pippen. So he was interested and wanted to option my screenplay. So that was huge.
Amazing.
And then the second thing was John Sally, NBA player.
Yes.
Also read it during Thanksgiving and called me and was like, I totally want to produce this. Now, again, affirmation, but also biggest lesson, because once I had a few people saying they were interested, I got a little cocky. And I think it was my first.
And you were like, you can pay me $1 million for this. And they were like,
right. Whereas now it's like, people are like, just be happy. No one's even paying for an option.
Right.
And so I decided that I did not want the option with Jim Stern, and that I was going places.
Oh, I've been there. Yes.
And so needless to say, we have not seen that movie. And the biggest lesson I got from it is, first of all, slow down, probably have good mentorship that helps you make those type of complex decisions so you're not just kind of wilding out. I think the other biggest lesson is you have to do inner work to let success in, because we all think that we want to succeed, but success is something that is a learned practice. And there are things that we do that sabotage it, that, we should go right, we end up going left. And while it's part of the life lessons, I do believe that if we don't learn how to truly make peace with joy and success, we will keep doing things that sabotage. So that was, the lesson that I take. And who knows, is it the best thing for you to sell your very first screenplay? I don't know. It could have been.
Right. We're going to find out.
Right.
When you do sell it, we're going to decide, should she have sold it back then, or is this the right timing? You know, I believe in marinating too. I believe and the world has to come around. It has to be in the zeitgeist. There's so many factors, I think, to success, to your point. So, okay. All right. So you're doing this inner work, you're learning these hard lessons. And then you end up at OWN, speaking of a Black woman role model for the podcast, for sure, you end up on that network in Unscripted at that, because you had so much, focus on screenwriting. So how did that happen?
So I started, as I was writing, reality television and Unscripted started really, really taking off. And no one, there were the naysayers, a ton of them, especially people in Scripted. No one could have imagined where Unscripted would go. However, I really felt like I had a gut instinct about it. And one of the things that happened, I have a very Pan-African hippie, alternative family on the whole. A lot of our closest,
why I love you.
Exactly.
So
our closest relatives. And we were at a family gathering that was in Arizona. We're all just in nature. And my cousins were debating about Survivor. And I was like, wait a minute. If my family is talking about reality TV, this
there's something
is
here.
Something. Yeah. So I started looking at inroads to reality TV. I had a few connections. We all know that makes a big, big difference. But I also had connections because they had worked with me, whether it was for free or they were friends who could vouch for me. And I ended up, starting to work in casting in Unscripted. Long story short, I next went to story producing, which was the closest thing to writing. And to my surprise, I was like, this actually is almost as fulfilling, if not more so, than writing.
Talk to us about what a story producer does.
So a story producer in Unscripted, and especially in reality TV, is really pivotal because about 200 or 300 hours of footage for an episode is dumped into that person's lap. Back then it was literally VHS tapes where we'd be watching, and then it was old school. So we're giving all this footage and we have to narrow it down to about, 42, 43 minutes. Yes. And so it's very, very creative. Back in the day, people thought, reality just is what it is. It's the fact is people are boring. People are imperfect when you don't want them to be. They're perfect when you don't want, So it really takes a lot of massaging in addition to interviews to make, America's Next Top Model nail biting. Right. So I learned from the best of the best at America's Next Top Model and was in charge of the premiere episode, which really helped.
Amazing.
Well, thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
Myself and my partner, my story producing partner at the time. And that helped me learn branding characters because we would brand the characters. This is the girl,
the individual,
right. So we'd have a master board, and it was the girl who always cries, the conceited girl, the this girl. And so we would set the tone for the series, and then other story producers would build on that brand.
Okay.
Which makes, as we know, in Scripted, we know rule of three and things like that. So if we know she always cries, then we're waiting. She's got a photo shoot with spiders. What's she going to do? We're waiting for her to cry.
Yes.
So I learned so much from being a story producer that really informed my writing, but I also could use, just story concept and structure for that. Made my way through the ranks and became a showrunner in Unscripted.
What? I don't think I knew that. Yes. Kai, what show was it?
So there were so many by that point. I mean, you've named a few.
So you were the showrunner on these, and I'm sorry, I did not put it in my head.
Yes.
What a badass you are. I'm What?
Yeah.
These are your shows.
I guess so. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't call it that
there's
in
no
the same.
imposter syndrome here. No, not I guess so.
And I really don't have imposter syndrome, but I would say because Unscripted is so collaborative, yes, the showrunner is 100% in charge of everything and to blame for everything and working the hardest.
Yes.
So for sure, I know the imprint that I had. I do think it's a little different than like the director or the Shonda Rhimes, et cetera. But I will say yes, absolutely. I'll take it.
You do all of that. That's amazing. These are yours. They're yours.
And obviously on my journey to being a showrunner and as a showrunner, I started really appreciating that I am really great at this.
Yes.
And that I know how to see all these different component parts and put all of these people together and bring the best out of all of them and see it through over 9 months or 12 months to get to this finished product. And so that, again, was so important to see myself in all of those stages and under all of those, sometimes difficult situations. As an interviewer, see how I could really bring out the best in people. So that led me to being really quite established as a documentarian. And I knew that I was working so hard. It's like I would get in trouble sometimes because they'd be like, you can't keep the editors till 3 a.m. when you have a cut going to the network. I also hired people who were right there with me, and we were like no,
we're going to get this done.
We're going to make this perfect. And then the network would be happy. But I knew logically, like, this isn't sustainable to work for this amount of time and this intensely.
Yeah.
I had been doing it in some way since I was 16, like 14-hour days.
Right.
But I was really happy, and I was at the point where even before I would finish a project, my agent had like another 1 or 2 offers. So I was very grateful. But then COVID happened. Then George Floyd and all of the political unrest happened, and networks, I'm assuming, started looking around and saying, we don't have a lot of African Americans in our ranks, which was very, very true. And we know is still very true. Yep. And I'm at home. I actually, during this very trying period, it was the first time I had ever just not had to do any work. So even though it was,
how was that? Were you like, I need to be working, or were you able to kind of take a breather and enjoy it and relax into it?
Well, obviously all of us had the intense emotional pressure and journey of what the entire world was going through. Yeah. But I do know that different people had different experiences. So without being callous at all in terms of, there was real suffering. Yeah. I had, people who lost parents during that time, et cetera. For me personally, it was actually an amazing time period. Okay. Partially, like I said, because it was the first time where I couldn't work and I really couldn't work. Yeah, so it wasn't like, oh, you should be. It was like, no, you can't work.
Can't work. Yes.
So you can just enjoy. So I really, really did. And I'm thankful. I had an S Corp. I had a SBA loan. I was like, wait, are they just putting all this money in my account? Like, I was like, are they really going to do this? And then I was like, oh my God, it landed. Plus unemployment.
Yes.
And I was already a happy, healthy person. And so I did make the most of that and really just took a moment to kind of center and do some internal work and have some fun that I hadn't been able to have for, as a showrunner. But during that period, networks started reaching out to me. And, in Hollywood, first of all, it's rare that anyone's reaching out to you.
Yeah,
Usually your agent or someone, you're pounding the pavement.
Right.
And it's like...
They're coming to you.
Right. Network after network after network. The first one, and I won't mention any names because who knows, I may want to double back one day. But the first one, very prestigious, but I could tell she was just like stressed. And she was like, it's COVID. She's in her house in the Hamptons and just stressed. And I was like, no, ma'am.
Good for you.
I am not interested in being your piece.
Yes.
And so even though it's a network that I really, hold in high regard, I was like, this is not for me, but interesting, and I'm like, wow, this is really interesting that they came to me. Second network, I was like, oh, for sure, I would definitely work for these people.
Yeah.
Let's go through the process.
Yeah.
About halfway through, and I love them and they love me, they decided they were going to actually hire for a position lower than me, and they weren't going to hire for my position.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, happy that I was considered. Moving on. I still have my whole showrunner life. And then the third was the Oprah Winfrey Network.
Yes.
So I was like, this is very interesting.
Yes.
Like you, like all of us, I had grown up with Miss Winfrey.
Yes.
Really, I would say holding her probably in the highest regard of
Absolutely.
just about anyone on the planet.
Yeah.
Like really.
Yes.
And so I was like, this is obviously a fit in terms of my spirituality, what is important to me, what resonates with my heart. But I also still didn't know, I don't know anything about being a network executive. Is this right for me? So I was kind of halfway, but doing it in terms of the interview process. And they were throwing me, they were putting me through for good reason, interview after interview and do notes on this and do notes on this.
Oh, wow.
At the time, I actually had started working again.
I would love to dig into that further
Sure.
so that people could be prepared if this is something they want to do. So you talked about this long interview process and then giving notes. So was it that they were giving you content and they wanted to see how you would put that story together, or...
So because it was unscripted, they were giving me past episodes of their own shows.
Okay.
Or, episodes that hadn't aired and asking me to do notes, which is what my job would be.
Right.
So I'm doing, notes and notes. And obviously they're looking at them and comparing them to their own notes and what they would have done.
Right.
So that was part of the process. I was also interviewing with various people who were involved in the network. And I remember starting to get very overwhelmed. And I think for all of us, it's a familiar feeling where you're like, you want something really bad, you're nervous about it, but at the same time, part of you wants to be like, this is too much. Maybe maybe this isn't for me, that kind of feeling. And it started coming up. And I don't remember if I said it. I think I said it to the main person who was considering me, which is Robin Latiker Johnson. And she was the EVP at the time of Unscripted. And I remember telling her, I'm show running right now. I was doing this amazing project with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I was like, I just am getting overwhelmed with all these notes. And she's like, do you need some more time? And I said, yeah, I really do need some more time. And she's like, you got it.
And you were like, okay, I'll take this job if you pitch me, right?
Well, the thing is,
she
it's
offered for you to take some time.
And I asked for it too, instead of sabotaging or just burning myself out or whatever. And so something kind of clicked in me and I was like, you better do this. And so I did everything to the best of my ability. And at that point I said, if they offer this to me, this feels right and I'm going to take it. And they did.
Yes.
So I started my journey, a couple months later.
And how long have you been there
executive.
now?
I always have to ask my boss, but I am going into my 5th year.
Amazing.
Which it's gone really, really fast, which is always a good sign.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, I mean, this is so helpful. First of all, it really clicked for me that part of why you built all this strength around documentary storytelling was because you had the experience of being on sets when you were in your teen years and that those sets in particular. But a lot of people, like screenwriters, think more in front of the camera, right? They think of the story unfolding. They're not necessarily thinking about like all the inner workings of how that story gets told. I think that exposure this is just, I'm wondering if that exposure for you is part of what planted seeds. And then you knew how to tell a good story because you became a screenwriter, but to have that as well as to understand how production works, it's just making sense to me how you are so successful at what you do. If you are enjoying this episode of Sister Brunch, you have got to join the whole community. And we are over here, all these conversations we have on Sister Brunch, you will be able to do this with us weekly, even daily on Patreon. So you can find us at patreon.com/sisterbrunch. You can join us for free. I mean, if you've got funds, we appreciate that too. You can have a monthly membership or join us for free. You're going to get behind the scenes. You're going to get some sneak peeks at episodes. We've got merch. We've got conversations going on over there that you can't see us having publicly, really. This is our place to really talk about all the things that we talked about at those original Sister Brunches in person. We are doing over on our Patreon, so join us there.
Hi, I'm Bowe, and you're watching the Sister Brunch podcast.
And our next segment is on financials. And you've had these different experiences, but especially you've had the experiences of kind of being your own boss, really. And, even though you had an agent who would set you up, but then when you're a showrunner, you're kind of making the decisions versus now, working at a studio. So what financially, we can talk about budgets if you want, or your salary, whatever you're comfortable with, because we really want our listeners to understand what ranges there are out there for these jobs.
And I'll say a little bit first, being a freelancer, that's a whole journey.
Yeah.
Because the money's good when it's good, and then it's
real
non-existent.
tight.
Then it's like unemployment. Yes. And then it's good. And so part of the lesson there, again, and not like, oh, I'm so deep, but I'm a little deep.
You're deep. You're deep.
Part of the lesson that I taught myself is I am not going to be someone who's like, yay, we're in the money and feeling all great. And then when, I'm on, which I would call it hiatus, even though we do not have hiatus in
nonstop, but yeah,
in Unscripted. But I would say when I'm on hiatus, I have possibly 3 or 4 months where I'm not working. I could either stress and nail bite for 3 or 4 months and then get the job like I always do. Or I can start looking at this as I'm one of the few people who has a roof over my head and food on the table. However, I have 6 months of the year off. Who has that?
Yes.
And I also knew this will not be for, if everything works out well, this will not be for very long.
Yes.
And so I told myself, I'm going to enjoy this.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to treat this like, oh, I'm lucky enough to get vacation for 3 or 4 months. Yeah. And I would do my spiritual work. I would reconnect with friends. I'd really do all the things that we cannot do when we're working constantly. Yeah. And it would also fortify me for that interview process and for the next job. So that was really important way for me to look at not having money, because that's what really was going on.
Yep.
But I was like, oh, I'm getting paid by unemployment to relax and fortify myself and feel good about myself before the next one.
Yes.
So that's
and we just have to reiterate this, right? Like, when you have time off, whether it's like an official hiatus or whether it's have to go into unemployment because you're freelancing, but do take some of that time for yourself, right? Like, you talked about your spirituality, your, physical, all of the things you can do. You really do need to take advantage of that time.
Right.
Okay.
And so then financially, I'll talk about the two different things. Show running and unscripted. A lot of people don't know that it actually pays well.
Really?
Now, it is not like Hollywood actor money. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not Hollywood director money.
Right.
Let's be real. It is also doesn't have a union. So that is different. However, I think sometimes people are surprised by, the rate. So now I would say showrunners are making like rock bottom 5,000 a week, but up to 7 or so
when you're good,
a
when
week.
you're good, right? And they want, and you get to a place where you can negotiate. That's where you can go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
And, added, if you have your S Corp, you run it through your S Corp.
Yes.
And you have natural expenses and you probably can pay a lot less taxes than someone who is a full-time employee.
Yes.
So the rates are decent. And I think even more than that with unscripted, which I always encourage people who are pursuing scripted to actually go into unscripted because there's jobs.
Okay.
It's not 1 in a million like it is with scripted.
Yes.
And we learn. So we're constantly working, which means that we tend to know more than people who think they're a director but are not directing, think they're a writer but are not writing. All of these things, like
I'm signing. I'm like, so how would somebody go about if somebody, if a listener's like, I want to go into unscripted, what would you recommend? And I know we didn't even finish our financials question, but I'm like, now I really want to know that too.
So I think, like anywhere else, you have to start at the lowest level that you're qualified for. So that may be a PA, that may be an associate producer. It may be a story producer. Because I had some experience and because I was a writer, I was able to start as a story producer.
Yes.
And then it's just kind of going up the ranks. So the same as this goes for the field. There are, PA, AP, and then field producer. What I didn't know then in the field, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm directing. I didn't even want to direct. But suddenly I'm in charge of an entire set.
Yes.
And so the same thing for the producing where you're like, oh, my goodness, this is, as you said, like, this is my production.
Yes.
So good, potentially steady work and a lot of learning and a lot of interaction with the top production companies and networks. And that just doesn't happen in scripted a lot of times. It just doesn't, or it's very few and far between. Network, the tax bracket is different. I still have not gotten over that. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm in this 40% tax bracket. So I'll say the general range. I'm at the director level.
Okay.
Hopefully soon to be a VP.
Yes. Yes.
But the range is about 175 to 250, depending where you are.
Amazing.
Plus bonuses, plus,
Amazing.
And then at a VP level, depending where you are, could be sort of 250, 350 or so, benefits, all of the things, stock options, et cetera.
Yes.
Also better hours. So there are pluses and minuses, obviously. There's times to be a freelancer and to be really in it. And then there's times, that people decide that being corporate and being in a network is more
the stability, right? There's some stability there and
I mean, with our industry right now,
it's so true. That's a really good point. I think either way, you're constantly a little bit worried, but maybe the relationships you develop, it's really an interesting choice. And I think this is coming up for as a theme this season a lot, is that freelancer life versus working at a studio. And it really is, it's not really clear which one is better for anyone. I think it kind of determines on you and where you are in life. And okay, let's go to our, so thank you for these financials. And listen, for real, sign me up, because I'm like, I've always wanted to know that about Unscripted. So our Let's Talk Tech question: what is a piece of technology, verbiage, et cetera, that someone who doesn't do your job would not know if you said that to them?
Right. It took me 2 days. Literally, I was just getting out of the shower this morning and I was like, I got it.
Yes.
And again, I was going to call my boss, Drew Taffet, and be like, okay, what do I say for this thing? But it's actually the perfect thing. So we have in Unscripted a term called Frankenbite.
Okay.
And it's based on the fact that, as people are watching, it looks very seamless. We're going from verite, which is shot footage, to B-roll, which is, again, shot footage with no sound, just images, to interview bites. And it looks like this great dance, and it should. But what's really happening is a whole bunch of stuff. So we're trying to get lines out.
Yep.
And a lot of times, we may do 3 key interviews of someone, and then we want this part of the line and this part of the line from the third one where they have a different outfit, and all of, we're putting it together.
Yes.
And it seems like one complete thought. If you're being ethical, you're staying within the you're being true to who that person is. You're not just totally making them say things they wouldn't say.
Yeah.
If you're being unethical, we know there's a lot of power there. But what can sometimes happen is you have this part of a bite, and then you're putting 1 or 2, other parts of the bites together.
Okay.
And as a network executive or as a showrunner, I'm listening, and it's like, I was going to the, and we make a note, this sounds like a Frankenbite. So it just means parts of bites that are put together and they're not smoothed out enough, or they don't fit well enough. And so it sounds like they were constructed, which they were, like Frankenstein.
Like Frankenstein, Frankenbite.
And so they either have to be, massaged in the edit or in online. Sometimes we have to say, please call the talent, get that whole line from them, have them send it back, and they put it in. Or, they choose something else. So that's a
Frankenbite.
That's an insider term that we all know.
Thank you.
And use.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad you also talked a little bit about ethical storytelling and Unscripted. And I think that's, I think especially kind of in the documentary world, there's a lot of conversation around how you treat your subjects, or should the subjects be the ones that are telling the story, right? And so how do you reconcile that for yourself in Unscripted? And do you ever, are you in a position ever where you feel like you had to manipulate the story or a character and it wasn't really there? And how do you do that?
I don't feel like because I was in the position either as a story producer, as a supervising producer, or as a showrunner to make decisions about what was coming out of someone's mouth.
Yes.
I never compromised myself. And anyone who knows me, it's just like, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, we know you and your family. We know
I'm just not going to do it. But it's also not necessary. I don't even remember a time where someone's like, make them say. So I was also working for people who it's like, there's enough there that we can express artistically what needs to be expressed. And there isn't any rule or promise to people that, in these 3 interviews, I'm going to line everything up. No, this is a movie.
Yeah.
This is a documentary, and I'm going to use whatever sound bites are needed for that moment. So there's already all the freedom in the world.
Yep.
You just don't want to, augment someone's sentence to the point where it's in direct contradiction to what they would have said or what they believe.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so we are coming to the end of this episode, and I have learned so much really already. And this one is taking you back to when you were younger. So Kai, you and your younger self are sitting down to a sister brunch. What are you both eating? What are you both drinking? And then what do you tell her?
So I thought about this one too. And I was like, my favorite brunch, I actually make it.
Yes.
So
what time should we come over and have?
So my favorite, I'm actually known for my brunch. I'm not reliable.
Okay.
I'm not the woman who like every night your dinner's on the table. It's like, come on now. You can either have an executive for, or you can have someone who's cooking all day.
Yes.
That being said, I love Gouda grits.
Ooh.
Gouda grits.
Oh,
you gotta
that's
have
on
aged,
another
you have to have
level.
aged Gouda, not.
Ooh.
Not,
okay.
yes, aged Gouda.
And listen, I have to say you are our first guest this season to talk about grits, which is lovely to hear.
I don't even want to hear about any sugar. Come on now. Like we're not even talking about that.
Okay.
So beyond this, and I always tell people, I'm like, my grits, like you'll be looking at your grandmother like, ooh, what is she doing? What is she doing all these years?
Ooh.
So
okay.
Gouda grits.
Wow. Challenge is out there of the Gouda grits. Okay.
I cook a lot of vegetarian and vegan food, even though I'm a pescatarian.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm very very Northern California. So vegan scrambled eggs, which is just egg. If anyone's not, oh
just
my God.
eggs.
But you
So
have to treat it like eggs. A little red onion.
Yeah,
I do it with butter still because I'm not a vegan. So vegan eggs, vegan bacon. This again,
where do you get your? I need to know where you get your vegan.
Maciel's. It's a Michelin star deli in Los Angeles.
What?
How do delis even get a Michelin star? So they make the only vegan bacon that I would ever eat.
Okay, Maciel's. We'll be going there.
Right after this. So vegan bacon, and then I make cinnamon swirl French toast with. And I dip it in, this again, very Cali, but I dip it in a little hemp milk, but I put a little bourbon vanilla.
Oh my goodness.
Lots of butter. And then I do a little, I'm getting hungry. I do a little nut butter like on top of it.
Okay.
Like some almond butter, like melted with a little agave.
Yes.
So that's
I just need
my
to point
brunch.
out, we'll say this at the end, but we're at You Podcaster Studios in Hollywood, which is this incredible Black-owned studio in Hollywood. They have a kitchen, and Sister Brunch next season it's going to be a cooking show.
I love it.
Will promise us you will be our first guest, and we will make that.
I will.
Sam, yes, okay.
I will do
yes,
that.
Charlie. We are going to make that full Gouda grits. We got the French toast.
Cinnamon swirl French toast.
Cinnamon swirl French.
Yes.
I'm so okay. Okay, what are we drinking?
I do love a mimosa.
Okay.
Fresh squeezed orange juice. I do love a good mimosa.
Nice.
I think that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then what do you tell her?
How old is she?
I mean, it's up to you. Sometimes they make them drinking age so that they could drink the mimosas with you, but she could be, it really is whoever who did you need to talk to? Who needed to hear from you?
It reminds me now, I have a niece who's 30, who I've been very close to throughout her life, but really from 20 to 30. And that period, I feel like it is almost lied about. Like in movies, it's like glorified, like, oh, the 20s. And it's really your entire childhood coming up for like reexamination and your entire self and all of your issues. Like finally you're not in school and all your stuff, your parents, everything.
Yes.
And so I really pay attention to people in that age range, my two nieces and other people, because I feel like that's the time that's very misunderstood.
Yeah.
And people are saying like, this is the best time of your life. And it's like, no, it's not. It will lead to your adulthood and maybe the best time of your life. But you have to process for 10 years to get there, you know? So I would definitely talk to, my sort of 20-year-old going through that Saturn return for the astrologically sound people.
Yes.
I would really tell her, first of all, do the work. Because, and if you don't know astrology, look up the term Saturn return, which starts about 28. But I would say do the work. Don't avoid it. Have fun, but be as sober. When you're not partying, be sober. Like, don't try to cruise through this period where all of your emotions are coming up.
Be aware of it.
Be there. Feel the feelings. Cry, process, try to figure it out. Do therapy if you are able to. So important. And just go through it and trust and know that if you do that work, you will become an adult around 30 and your entire life will, the next 28-year cycle will be so different and potentially so powerful because you did that work. And to trust, as you're going through it, like trust that, like just do it and trust that on the other side of it is a lot of joy and power and knowledge of self.
Thank you so much, Kai. I'm so glad that you could join us. I'm so glad to know who you are because your sister loves you so much and said that you have to be on, and you really have come and taught us and inspired us. We're so grateful to you.
Thank you. And I really appreciate everything that you all are doing. I've watched, throughout the years and just seeing you like take the next step and the next step and the next step. And it's very inspirational as well.
Sister Brunch is brought to you by True Delo Productions. Our show creators are Anya Adams, Christabel Ncia-Boadi, and me, Fanshin Cox. Our season 7 producers are Tasha Rogers and Samantha K. Henderson. Our associate producers are Charlie T. Savage and Ashanti Groves. Sister Brunch is recorded on the unceded territory of the Tongva and the Chumash people in Hollywood, this time at U Podcaster Studios. Thank you so much for listening and watching and sharing and subscribing and reviewing us on Apple and Spotify. We're so grateful for all you do for our community, and we're grateful for you for being part of our community. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next time.